Muv Luv Extra is a weird game, in part due to its own merits, but just as important is the perception going in. After all, the Muv Luv trilogy is heralded as a masterpiece among masterpieces, with the finale alternative being a former holder of VNDB's #1 visual novel for almost a decade, if not over. It's only natural high expectations would be born. Wonder of what unique world you will become immersed in. So it might be a bit weird to be dropped into the life of your usual eroge protagonist, Shirogane Takeru, a high schooler spending his time off lackadaisically in between grueling classes, with the frequent teasing and mostly playful banter/assault with his childhood friend Sumika. The two have been inseparable since time immemorial. No matter what antics one gets up to, the other is soon to follow along. Takeru tries to enjoy his sleep before school. Sumika comes to wake him up. The stubbornness of the former causes the latter to be outraged as they trade shots back and forth on the way to school. For them, it was all they ever knew. A calm life, passing the days in the presence of each other. That is, until one morning, a woman bearing the name Mitsurugi Maya wakes up alongside him. Much to the rage of Sumika upon stumbling upon this sight, this suddenly appeared girl wedges her way into every corner of his life, honing apparent feelings and knowledge of Takeru, who has neither for her. But while she isn't any normal girl, isn't a supernatural entity, just extremely rich, being heiress to one of the world's largest financial groups. One who has the power to turn a neighborhood into a wasteland as if bombed off the map, to only then establish one's own monument right slap in the middle just to be closer to him. It is your typical 2000s Gaoge rom-com structure with its own slight twist to make it stand out. Takeru's banal life is thrown into chaos overnight, and not just his, but all of his classmates who now welcome Maya as their own. Their class rep, Sakaki Chizuru, is one who finds it difficult to adapt to, being such a stickler to the rules. So much so that even Takeru's rather casual way of life brings her rage, of which is often quelled by the timid, anxiety-prone, yet also amicable Tamase Miki. Then you have another of Chizuru's irritants, Ayamine Kei, an aloof, distant classmate who disregards all. Extra is a story of their daily life, and how the appearance of one girl forces all of them to look deep into their own hearts. A core theme seen through the heroines Takeru will grow closer with throughout the common route. It follows a formulaic structure, setting up a main goal that allows ample time to see the heroines both as a group and as individuals. In this case, training for a lacrosse game for their school sports festival. When it comes to understanding some of the more upfront aspects of their personality, every session gives a sort of lens into who they are. Maybe they don't do well under stress. Others may have full confidence in themselves and those at their side. Some may try to make up for their lack of athletic ability with spirit, only for Takeru to tear them down in an instant. Then, as the days wind down, opportunities to catch glimpses into the truth of their hearts. Hints of insecurity, doubt, uncertainty. Moments that break the public face they carry throughout the day. For the most part though, it carries a carefree yet high-energy atmosphere with how vibrant the characters are in both identity and design. This applies to the sidecast too, with Takeru's buddy Yoroi Mikoto, a bit dense in the head with a cheery, my-pace mind. Not to forget their caring homeroom teacher, Jinguji Marimo, who can often be a bit of a tease towards behavior that defies formality, often teased herself for constantly being seen eating out with another man by her friend, teacher of another class, and eccentric physicist Kozuki Yuko. These are yet more individuals who throw chaos into Takeru's life, especially the latter. Surprisingly, with how diversely eccentric these guys are, their personalities flow smoothly amongst themselves. Well, besides these two. All around, Sumika's a happy-go-lucky girl with no aversion towards violence at Takeru's provocation, as you do with friends who've been at your side longer than not. Even Maya, who forces herself between them, while met with a bit of irritation towards her advances, overall shares a more warmer relationship with her than you might think. The two get along fairly well with dialogue that bounces from one to the other to smashing into Takeru's ego so smooth you would forget they're rivals in love. But it's not only Maya's sudden appearance and anachronistic way of speech that makes her stand out. The maids at her side, always watching from afar, and the sheer power her demands brings keeps each day fresh and the turns within unknown. More than anything, her troop really sets in just how drastic a difference hers and the commoner way of life is. Almost like royalty. Though if there is any sort of relief to be had, is in Takahashi, her chauffeur. He may not be around all too often, yet in spite of that, his stature speaks tales of his reliability. He's that guy you can feel an inclination to trust without reason. Like he'd crash his 60-meter limousine into a car barreling straight for you just to ensure your safety regardless of what happens to anyone else. He's great. Kozuki is another one of these chaos-causing types. So wrapped up in her own intellectual curiosity, the trouble she causes others is no stop to her actions. She provokes a cooking tournament centered around Takeru simply because she finds his existence an interesting one. A magnet to all sorts of causality with how he wraps everyone around him into his life's chaos. And, oh yeah, that lacrosse game earlier? All to continue an ongoing feud with Marimo based on whose class will win. Muv Luv is very exaggerated with how things play out. One outlandish event meets with another soon after, followed by reactions of equal magnitude. There is a tendency for things to be dragged out a bit too long here and there. A little too much focus on the tropes and bizarrities that it doesn't forget about the importance of calming brevity, but can lack meaningful progression to where the chaos can feel a bit draining as the days go by. That's why, just taking it little by little, day by day, it's so easy to have fun if you go in expecting a classic gaoge where the rom-com scenarios bring these guys closer. However, that doesn't mean it's a turn your brain off fun type of story either. Because while Muv Luv loves to lean into certain character and story tropes, within each of them are surprising layers of subtlety so easily overlooked in the moment. Takeru is a really good example of this, a hard-headed kid who genuinely cares for those around him. Although, just like any normal person, especially one who hardly had any reason to evaluate his own self until now, is riddled with contradictions. He may seem lazy and uncaring, but wants nothing more than to help those he grows close with. All too often, however, does that come at the expense of overstepping his boundaries, using the guise of helping others to quell his own unease. This immaturity of failing to understand his own feelings or the extents of others are the main, or at least fuel to the conflicts he faces. He's dense toward Sumika's true feelings, or that of the perfect heiress who seems far from human in comparison to the life he and Sumika have lived. While the internal conflicts introduced in the common and tackled throughout each heroine's respective route sets a clear obstacle the two need to overcome, the subtlety lies in how they, like ordinary people, react and express their misgivings given their circumstances in life. A passing remark about Meia's famed status may bring a bout of discomfort to her face. Sumika as well when constant wedges are driven between her heart and desire. Sakaki is certainly stubbornly assertive, who seems a bit too stuck up despite the goodwill she frays as a result. The way it establishes the reasons for why each heroine acts the way they do is shockingly grounded, where the circumstances in their life led them to adopting a mindset they themselves don't fully understand. As a result, the flaws that come with it. They have their own wants and desires and act in a way they think safest to achieve them, but end up short-sighted, unable to see the hindrances their own mind lays before them. The hints of their true selves and troubles within their heart reflected in their outer selves are so small you may hardly even catch on without knowing the full picture first. A core theme of Muv Luv is coming to terms with your true emotions, and that leads to the tendency to run away or hide from uncomfortable truths. It makes sense logically to have the days repeat in frustration, for you can't necessarily look at the effects yourself. You need someone who can help reflect them. And across the 5 routes, it is handled to varying degrees of interest. Ayamine and Sakaki's play into that idea, often with Takeru meandering in indecision of how he should handle the weight he feels is thrusted upon him. And in that sense, it works to the favor of conveying their psychology and emotional state, as Sakaki becomes the subject of severe bullying, or Ayamine suffering from a thorn lodged in her heart from long ago. Even Takeru himself as he feels a yearning to help with all he can. Yet when his emotions cloud his own judgment and rationale, comes up short. A lot of it stems from circumstances they have no control over, only exacerbated by their immaturity of not knowing how to handle the cards life dealt them. I found these two routes in particular tend to drag on the same topic for a bit too long at times with an unsteady pace. However, the realness of the drama, characterizations, and their resolutions made me appreciate them much more after all was said and done. Tama is the third side route that handles the structure fairly well. You see, for as bright and cheery as she can be on the outside, within is a heart wrapped in anxiety that keeps her from accomplishing what she cherishes most. Her performance anxiety is something she never really got over, always choking when it matters most. Here, you see those incremental developments in how Takeru helps her grow comfortable both mentally and emotionally in the process. Plus, the archery lessons were pretty interesting too. This steady buildup is why I took a lot of interest in Maya and Sumika's routes, which are so deeply intertwined there's hardly a branching point between the two. The inner conflict of all three is put center stage simultaneously. You question the reasoning behind Maya's feelings as she struggles with the distance her heritage created. As for Takeru and Sumika, it's the latter's forthcoming emotions that force the two to truly look towards the feelings they have toward each other. After all, the two have been at each other's side for as long as they can remember. A world without the other there is unthinkable to them. Thus, the possibility of such reality coming true forces them both to look within. You can definitely look at their routes being the main ones, though all five are important to understanding the heroines and who Takeru is at his core. He has his dense moments and inability to see things outside his own worldview, but he genuinely cares about those around him. To such an extreme degree, he gets too emotionally wrapped up. A lot of the time, he makes things worse for himself by stepping over the bounds of privacy and speaking with an emotional tongue without thinking about how it would make the other feel. In the same vein, however, that's exactly where that hard-headedness of his helps him most. Because he is so emotionally tied to them, he will stop at nothing if it means he can reconcile and fix what he himself broke. He doesn't always make the right choices, at times failing pretty badly to the point it can be uncomfortable to see him fall and trip again and again and again over the same mistakes. But it's portrayed as something completely human. It's frustrating because you can understand where he's coming from in most cases, just to see him miss the mark with how rashly he acts and reacts. Hypocritical criticism, no matter how true, is hard to see as genuine. You get the sense that they are all emotionally troubled kids trying to find stability within the many complications life bestows. The emotional growth of any route's main leads are intertwined in finding that stability, as Muv Luv's heart is accepting who you are, coming to sort out and understand all those complicated feelings you carry through life, and finding comfort in those who will gladly share them with you, so that you can move forward with a life you can gladly accept without regret. Extra is hardly the masterpiece the latter entry's trickle-down reception will have you believe, and if you go in so hyper-focused on being blown away with philosophical dialogue or stuck on finding morals you can spend days pondering over, you will be disappointed. Many of its elements can seem a bit generic. The pacing can stagnate here and there, at times fall short on a few conclusions despite their long build-up. But it's heartfelt in the characters you spend time with and in its themes of adjoining hearts. Do not go into Extra expecting some masterpiece. Go in expecting a simple, albeit chaotic story of how the sudden appearance of a single girl changed the lives of many, and how the experiences they make come to help them better understand themselves. Yet, I would also advise to not turn your brain off and miss out on the surprising depth of their characters. It's a story you should go into with an open mind. Better if you aren't expecting a thing, because it works on two levels. One being a fun rom-com with meaningful interpersonal drama if you stop here, or simply the emotional backbone from here on. In this town they met, their lives bound by the emotions they shared in the other's embrace. Memories that would never fade live etched into their hearts. But to assume all would stay the same is woefully short-sighted.